Start with a $20 profit on a single pair of sneakers at 15 years old and end up moving 1,000 pairs a week as an adult, running a business that clears $300,000 a month. That's genuinely how one founder's sneaker business actually grew. No investors, no warehouse on day one, just a teenager who kept buying low, selling fairly, and showing up again the next day. Today, we're breaking down exactly how a sneaker reselling business actually works, using real founder stories and real numbers from people who built this from literally nothing. Here's how it actually started for one founder named Elik Gorelik. He didn't start with sneakers at all. At school, he was selling candy, then gum, then duct tape wallets he made himself. The specific product kept changing, but the underlying pattern never did. Buy low, sell fairly, repeat, and keep showing up the next day. When he finally moved into sneakers at 15, his very first flip made him $20 in profit. That's the entire origin story. Not a big break, not a lucky connection. $20 and the decision to do it again. Here's what that same habit eventually grew into. Elik's business, now called Sneaker Hustle, moves roughly 1,000 pairs of sneakers a week, and the business itself hits around $300,000 a month in volume. What's genuinely interesting about how he describes it is that the exciting version of this business, camping outside a store for one hot release and flipping it for a quick win, isn't actually the center of the story anymore. What actually built this into something substantial was steady sourcing, tight margins, fast turnaround, lots of repeat sellers, and a reputation he protected carefully, because in his own words, that reputation is what pays the rent. Here's a completely different founder story that shows this same idea working at an even bigger scale. Oscar Rachmansky started as a sneaker reseller in New York, literally using $1,000 in birthday money as his entire starting capital. Through high school, as a pure side hustle, he turned that into roughly $30,000 to $40,000. When he got to college, the business stayed small, just something running in the background. Then the pandemic hit, sent him back home, and he noticed the sneaker and streetwear resale markets were suddenly surging harder than ever. He used that $1,000 foundation and the momentum of that unexpected surge to eventually build a wholesale sneaker resale company that's grown into a $50 million business in just 5 years. Here's what makes this specific business genuinely accessible in a way most retail businesses simply aren't. You don't need a storefront. You don't need to manufacture anything. You need capital to buy inventory and a genuine understanding of which specific sneakers are actually going to hold or increase in value after release. One reseller who sells millions of dollars worth of sneakers annually through StockX started with a single pair, Nike Bearbrick SB Dunks, that earned him just $70 in profit back in 2017. Small start, same pattern as every other story in this space. The business itself scales through repetition, not through some single massive breakthrough moment. Here's how the actual money and margins can work in this specific market. Limited edition sneaker flipping at its most extreme can carry profit margins as high as 1,000% on a single hyped release, though that kind of outlier margin depends entirely on catching a genuinely rare drop before the broader market catches on. On the steadier, less flashy end of this business, sneaker content and education businesses built around the same core skill can generate consistent revenue too. One founder built a sneaker flipping education resource into roughly $4,000 a month with minimal expenses, teaching other people the exact skill he'd already been using himself for years. Here's an honest reality check worth understanding before jumping into this, because most content on this topic skips straight to the exciting outlier numbers. Profits from traditional weekly release sneaker flipping have genuinely slowed since the pandemic boom ended. With more product releases happening than ever and increasingly selective price-savvy consumers, there are far fewer opportunities left for the easy $1,000 flips that defined this business a few years ago. The reseller who started in 2017 specifically noted that he was fortunate to learn the actual skill of identifying a hot-selling item before it blew up, because the market has since become considerably more crowded and cutthroat as more people saw the opportunity and rushed in. Here's the part that actually separates founders who build something lasting from the ones chasing quick flips. The steady, boring version of this business, careful sourcing, tight margins, fast inventory turnover, and genuine relationships with repeat sellers, tends to outlast the exciting version built purely around camping outside stores for hype releases. One power seller specifically described how his operation evolved from stacks of shoeboxes stored in his own house to storing 6,000 pairs of shoes in an actual warehouse, cycling down to just 1,000 remaining after a single major sales period. That's the difference between running this as a hobby and running it as an actual scalable operation. Here's a detail about how this business has professionalized on the supply side too, because sourcing inventory has become its own specialized layer of this industry. Wholesale sneaker resale companies now supply smaller independent resellers directly, letting individual shop owners scale from a single location to multiple locations nationwide without having to personally source every single pair themselves. One independent shop owner described expanding from one location to 12 across multiple states specifically because a reliable wholesale supplier let him scale faster than sourcing inventory independently ever could have. So here's the actual takeaway. A sneaker business isn't a business that requires a retail lease, a manufacturing background, or connections in the fashion industry. It requires real product knowledge, specifically knowing which releases will actually hold value, a genuine appetite for hands-on daily work, and based on every single founder story we've walked through today, a willingness to start absurdly small and simply keep going. The founders behind these real examples didn't start with warehouses or wholesale contracts. One started with a $20 profit selling candy, then gum, then sneakers. Another started with $1,000 in birthday money. Neither of them knew at that first small sale what the business would eventually become. Before you go, I'm curious about one thing specifically. Have you ever bought or sold a pair of sneakers for a profit, even just once? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one and I'd genuinely love to know.